All right, good evening, good evening. As we come up on the 8 o'clock deadline for Iran. So it was just about 48 hours ago. Some of you would have probably been headed to church when you first learned that the president was out there making a demand, a final demand to Iran. 48 hours. You got 48 hours. And we're going to get into that today. But first, let's talk about why. Why do we do this? What drove the president to bomb? What drove this seemingly, or at least if you're listening to the other side today, you'll hear the unprovoked attack, right? Why did we get this unprovoked attack? By the way, I want to bring out something. Hey, Shelley, I want to. It's great, always great to see you here, and we're going to talk about JD Pritzker in just a little bit. But I want to point out some things about the studio that are changing. So if you go back to that wide shot. So one of the things we do in our company, Threat Tech, is we provide a lot of support, and it turns out that some of these systems that you see behind us. Although none of these are used in the war against Iran, and certainly none of them are U.S. systems. That's a Chinese YJ missile up there, kind of the big one. This one on this side is another YJ that's in pieces. And we have one that we're bringing into the studio that's about 20 feet long. It's great. It's really kind of giant. But as you continue to watch with us, you'll see the studio taking shape and changing a good bit. We've got a number of things that are happening. Our engineers are really on this mission now. They just started today, so some of the things that they brought over were pieces out of our mission engineering practice that we're going to use as decorations here. There's some different interesting points, and maybe we'll talk about them sometime. Maybe we won't. Hopefully, we're going to see the bobbleheads come back somewhere in the mix. We've got a whole long, I can't wait to really share the whole studio with you all, because there is probably, if I go back 4 or 5 years, we bought this building with the intent of building a studio. It's an old bank. Anyway, lots of cool stuff to share. You'll see it. Let's stay on topic. So here we go. The reason that we were dealing with the Iranians as we had is one, you can't take their word for much, right? So I'm going to give you the top 10 things that Iran has done to the West and to Israel. Now, look, I don't like all this anti-Israeli sentiment that's out there. It's I wouldn't like this anti-Arab sentiment. I wouldn't like anti-Hispanic sentiment. We are all people, right? We're all God's children. At the end of the day, he wants us to all get along and to figure out how to love each other and care for each other. But let's jump in. Top 10, starting with number 10. So of course, the number 10 really is the most current today. This Strait of Hormuz closure that's caused Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain to collectively shut in an estimated 7.5 million barrels of oil. That's a lot of oil. Spiking gas prices, as we've all paid, this $3-4 a gallon gas now. It's crazy. So economic act of warfare. Okay, we're at war. That one's probably the least offensive to me. You're at war. These things are possible. Institutionalized death to America and death to Israel ideology. Under Khomeini, the Islamic Republic institutionalized anti-Semitism, right? That's really one of the drivers, because they've always said they're going to wipe out the great Satan and little Satan, which is Israel, while promoting the propaganda for the final solution to eliminate Israel, coming straight out of Nazi Germany. Number 8, assassination plots on U.S. soil. So Iran plotted to assassinate a Saudi ambassador in Washington, D.C. in 2011. Most recently, the DOJ announced charges against an Iranian citizen for a murder for hire plot. targeting multiple Americans, including President Trump. Remember, George W. Bush went to Iraq because the Iraqis had threatened to kill his father. Maybe that's not the only reason, but it's among them. Nuclear breakout program. Number 7, nuclear breakout program. By March 2026, Iran possessed over 450 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, enough for 9 to 11 nuclear weapons. With a breakout time measured in days, decades of lying to IAEA inspectors, and it was enough. It was enough to make us move. Number 6, funding and arming Hamas. So the whole idea of having these proxy battles where you push some other group, so push Hamas out there, push Hezbollah out there, and use that to do your bidding, make them take action against your most hated enemy, Israel. So Hamas, their October 7th massacre, all funded in 2023 by Iran, followed by direct Iranian missile and drone attacks on Israel April and October of 2024. Buenos Aires Jewish Community Center bombing in 1994. This is number 5. Iran carried out the AMIA bombing in Argentina, the deadliest attack on a Jewish community center in history, killing 85 people. Also bombed the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires in 1992. 603 American troops killed in Iraq, 2003 to 2011. 603. Iran-backed militias killed at least 603 U.S. troops. So, geographically, Iran and Iraq are side by side. We saw in Sadr City, the backing of all of these militias, pushing them, providing them with arms, providing them with weapons and financing to go out and take on the Americans. Number 3, Khobar Tower bombing, 1996. Hezbollah al-Hejaz, with direct Iranian IRGC involvement, detonated a massive truck bomb near U.S. Air Force housing complex in Saudi Arabia, killing 19 American airmen, injuring nearly 500. We forget about some of these that go back into the 90s. FBI confirmed direct Iranian responsibility. Now for the way back. Beirut Marine Barracks bombing, 1983. I know a lot of folks who've been tied to those. One of my very close friends and mentors was actually the Marine who was on call the night and took the phone call from the theater telling what had happened. Iran-backed Hezbollah killed 241 U.S. military personnel, including 220 Marines, in a truck bombing at Marine compound in Beirut. Largest single-day loss of U.S. Marines since Iwo Jima. And number 1, the U.S. Embassy hostage crisis, 1979. Iranian students backed by the regime seized the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, taking 66 Americans hostage for 444 days. The founding act of the Islamic Republic's war on America. So since 1979, we have been at odds with Iran. Iran has persistently and really without any truth in lending, without the typical statesmanship that we look for, we look to deal with countries that are going to say what they mean and mean what they say, and you can negotiate with them because it's in everyone's best interest to deal openly. And honestly, they do not. All right, so here's where we are. Breaking news tonight, April 7th, 2026. In fact, right now at 8:03, we're just 3 minutes past the deadline that Trump put in place 2 days ago and continued to reiterate, right? So if you watched him, he doubled down on the press conference yesterday. He doubled down several times yesterday. And I think the Iranians were starting to sweat it. So Trump has agreed, the president has agreed to a 2-week hiatus. A ceasefire has been announced. This is going to be a double-sided ceasefire. So Iran ceasefire, U.S. ceasefire. We've already met and exceeded all the military objectives. This is according to President Trump. And look, we hit 50 targets last night, right? 50 targets on Kharg Island. So, um, along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran, Iran submitted a 10-point proposal, which he considers a workable basis. Now, let me talk about that. That means it's a workable starting point. He's not saying we're going to give them those 10 things. He's saying we've got a starting point. We've got some place that we can negotiate from and potentially save a lot of life, save a lot of destruction. Um, you know, the president has made no bones about the plan to destroy all the bridges, to destroy all the power plants. The infrastructure would simply wither the country. It would be the next worst thing to a nuclear attack. No power, no transportation, no significant transportation, all gone, and really take a generation to rebuild. So after 48 hours of I'm going to destroy the power plants, I call it the yabba dabba do ya, right? Because it's a little Fred Flintstone. He says, I'm going to take these people back to the Stone Age. So I remember Fred Flintstone. It makes me think, they're going to be living with cars where they have to pedal with their feet or walk around and drag their cars, whatever. Okay, so Iran has said this. Iran's 10-point proposal. Here's their demands. Hormuz reopening tied to sanctions and relief, relief from the sanctions, an end to Israeli strikes, and establishment of new legal regimen for the Strait, including a $2 million fee per ship transiting. So this is interesting that they're like the trolls from the storybooks who manage the bridge. If you're going to walk across the bridge, you got to pay the toll. So they want a $2 million fee for a ship going through international waters. Iran's position throughout, no temporary ceasefire. They want a permanent end to the war. Well, obviously they backed up on that one. They wanted sanctions lifted. They wanted other regional wars ended, meaning no more taking on Hezbollah, no more taking on Hamas. I don't think they care about what's happening in Ukraine. Iran's military called Trump's threats delusional. Well, what you say versus what you do, this is what my mother used to say, actions speak louder than words. So they've come to the table and we've gotten this far. Now, Netanyahu is skeptical. He says, I'm skeptical if a deal is achievable, and he's conveyed to Trump that any ceasefire must require Iran to surrender all enriched uranium and permanently halt enrichment. Listen, you don't have to make a missile to launch nuclear material. Dirty bombs, all sorts of other methods to deliver a nuclear attack to a community. Obviously, people at that music festival in 2023 in Israel did not think they were going to have people jumping out of the sky to murder them, right? It's a nice weekend. They're going to murder them. The country has shown its willingness to enact the most barbaric and archaic means. So I can understand Netanyahu's concern. I would not want them to be left with anything. Israel continued striking railways, bridges, and petrochemical facilities, even as the ceasefire attacks or talks progressed. Now, there's a wild card here. So Iran warned its restraint on targeting Gulf oil infrastructure would no longer apply after the U.S. strikes on Kharg Island. So that was last night. Gas prices nationally now over $4. California, crazy California, hitting $5.92. Thank you, Gavin Newsom. Really nice of you to put those extra taxes on so that you could pass those around to your voting base. So look, I mean, do we want to say Trump blinked on this? I'm curious in the comments. And where is everybody? Where is everyone tonight? Let me see some comments here. Come on, there's some serious stuff happening. You guys better start chiming in here. What in the world? Core tension, right? So what's the deal? Is there, in fact, did Trump blink? Did Iran blink? I don't know the answer. But I'm going to tell you, based on what Iran was saying yesterday, that nothing without everything, it seems like they didn't get everything. It seems to me as if they have decided they like their bridges, they like their power, You know, it's one thing for the mullahs to live like it's 600 BC. It's another thing when you do it without air conditioning, right? I mean, anybody who's gone camping right, knows this. My wife, when I left the military, I think that was my last hard time camping. I decided after that, no more camping, right? No more camping. I was an infantry guy. You're walking everywhere. You're sleeping on the ground. You're not in sleeping bags. You don't have a campfire. I can't imagine what that life would be like in Iran without air conditioning, right? I would need some air conditioning myself. And it sounds like the mullahs want air conditioning too. Okay, so another point, though, that has really bothered me over the last maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So we've got politicians calling for the 25th Amendment against President Trump. And they have really been out there doing everything they can say, everything they can think of. And I want to roll through a list of politicians for you. And I want you to think about these folks. Spoiler alert, Shelley, get ready for J.D. Pritzker. And here we have a group of folks. We have a combat action going on with another country. So an adversary, we are at, for all intents and purposes, a state of armed conflict, a state of war. And we have very tense negotiations going on inside the country. And there is wonderful Ilhan also on the list. So look at these folks. And I just want to ask you a couple things. Anybody who's been married, had children, and has a mom and dad situation in the house, mom and dad don't fight in front of the kids when they're negotiating the chores or they're negotiating something, right? Mom and dad put on a unified face and they act with dignity and unity and one accord, right? One accord, one agreement. Our politicians who swear to support and defend the Constitution, I think it is fine for you to have these discussions right up until the moment that the first bullet is fired, the first missile is launched, the first jet is taken off the runway. And then every American should get behind what is the American action and to swing for the fences for America to win. When you're negotiating, it has long been Iran's game to work on public opinion, to work on what we call the gray man. They want to sway public opinion. And when you have a fox in the henhouse who's doing that for you. So in this case, we have politicians, and I'm going to go through them. We're going to name names. We're going to talk about these people because it's shameful to me, while we have people in harm's way, that we have politicians who are living off of the support paid by American taxpayers, that they would sit there and speak this way or behave this way internationally. And they do it to get their 15 minutes of fame, or maybe it's worse. Maybe they're agents of a foreign government. So let me give you the picture here. Politicians calling for the 25th Amendment. Yasmin Ansari, Democrat from Arizona, the Iranian American, right? Iranian American, first out of the gate, called Trump a security threat to our country and the world. Now, I don't know what country she was talking about. Maybe she was talking about Iran. But security threat to our country and the world is very questionable to me, particularly when we are at war or we are at a state of conflict. Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, told Trump's cabinet to spend Easter. He wanted them to spend Easter calling constitutional lawyers about the 25th Amendment, calling Trump's post completely and utterly unhinged. Now, I'm sure some of you also saw the post. Look, everybody knows how President Trump is. He's really not been different. He's not been different. Okay, Ilhan Omar, Democrat from Minnesota, called Trump an unhinged lunatic and demanded impeachment and the 25th Amendment removal. Representative Mark Pocan, Democrat from Wisconsin, called for the 25th Amendment right now. Okay, Maxine Dexter, Democrat from Oregon, called for the impeachment and or the 25th Amendment. Ed Markey, Democrat from Massachusetts, and Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat from Oregon, among 50 plus House Democrats and senators calling for removal. Folks, the country has gotten to a point. Oh, not to disappoint, Shelley. Here we go. J.D. Pritzker, Democrat from Illinois, called for the 25th Amendment to be invoked, writing, "It's past time." I would say, look, there were Republicans too. We're going to get to them. But when the country has this sort of, well, there's old JD. All right, he is a walking advertisement, right? JD Pritzker. I'm not going to say who he's advertising for, but when we're thinking about healthcare and we're thinking about things like this in Illinois, think JD Pritzker, right? On the Republican side, MTG, baby, called Trump's rhetoric evil and madness, writing 25th Amendment. We cannot kill an entire civilization. I don't think I heard Trump say we're going to kill the entire civilization. I think he said we're going to destroy their infrastructure, right? We're going to take out their bridges, their power plants. I don't know that that's destroying the civilization. I mean, Marjorie may have overstated here, not that she hasn't been full of hyperbole herself from time to time. Don Bacon, Republican from Nebraska, more measured, said Trump. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get this right. He did not say something bad. What Don Bacon said was, "Hey, Trump is negotiating Trump style." Okay, so President Trump has demonstrated across a number of things, in my opinion, that he has a particular style of negotiating that may not be my style. In fact, I'll just tell you, it wouldn't be my style. I probably would be a little less effective in some of these places than he is. I might be a little more liked. I don't think he cares if he's liked. I think he cares about the result. And ultimately, if the result was to bring this thing to closure, sometimes you have to remember this term, escalate to de-escalate. So this was the whole concept of raising the stakes to pull back the stakes, because when people are really faced with the idea that there is a significant challenge ahead, when Japan was faced with the atomic bombs and they saw 140,000 people vaporized, it caused them to say, boy, we were never going to surrender, but maybe now surrender seems like the better play. Okay. Thinking that you're not going to have air conditioning in Iran for the summer months is probably got the mullahs and most of all the citizens. And I will tell you, I don't think there's anyone who can look at the citizens of Iran when they're out protesting. Now we need to cover this. We need to cover those protests and talk about what were they exactly protesting. Were they protesting? I think sometimes we tend to put our Western eyes on this, and we look and we watch and we see what's happening and we say, man, there are people, they're protesting. And maybe there was a little bit of that within Trump's advisors. The thought that all they had to do was weaken the knees, break a few bones inside that infrastructure, and that it would crumble because the people would rise up and replace this crazy thinking. But I want to go back to who was it took those hostages from the embassy? It was college students, right? It wasn't a bunch of old crotchety mullahs. It was college students who had bought into this idea that this far right, very archaic way of living was the way to live, and they wanted to bring it back, right? They wanted the big Satan out and the little Satan gone. So we can't always just assume that because we see protests that those protests are in line with things that we would think. Maybe there was a little bit of an overestimation or a little too much hope that those people would rise up. When President Trump went on the podium and he said, "Hey, I want you guys to rise up. I want you to do things and take your country back," right? I've done it. I've prepared it for you. I want you to go take it. I'm not sure that they ever were thinking that. I think there were economic drivers that were pushing those people to protest. There was a lack of access to some things that they were protesting. Certainly, there were people among them who were protesting, the wearing of the hijab or some of those other more religiously conservative items. But hey, that's for another podcast where we go into that. Joe Walsh, former GOP congressman, called for the 25th Amendment immediately. Scaramucci, the Mooch, former White House comms director, the guy who lasted 9 hours in a Trump administration, he says he invoked the founders and madman language. I'm not sure. Hey, Wayne, is Wayne out there? I'm not seeing one thing that's driving me crazy. I only see one comment. Do we only have one comment? We have a lot of comments. I'm only seeing one, and here I am complaining. It's me. It's not you. I can see when you guys do the hearts and those things. I have no idea why it does this. Let me see if I can refresh a page here and see if I can keep up with what's happening today, because I want to hear what you guys are thinking and where you stand really in these. Boy, I'm really bad at this. I've really gotten bad. I'm so bad, so bad. Okay, now I see it. Yeah, I see you guys. Okay. Hey, thanks. Okay, so Scaramucci, he comes in and has his complaints, but then there's Alex Jones, Candace Owen, and Tucker Carlson, all breaking with Trump on the Iran civilian targeting. Look, this is another one of those areas where when I hear it, my phone's ringing. I'm going to shut this off. Where I hear it, where I hear it, and I think. I have to question sometimes, and I'm not saying these people don't believe this, but I do feel as if one thing that makes me really happy in terms of having a podcast is I'm not here to make money, right? Although I'm going to give you some merchandise here soon, and we'll talk about that another time too. But listen, I'm not here to make money. In fact, we spend a good amount of money to make this happen, right? We've developed a studio just in the equipment and the things. I wish you guys could see if I could turn these and show you all the things and the people it takes to make these things come to life. It's a lot. It's a lot. So, but some of these podcasters have really gotten into sensationalizing everything, making everything super tough, right? Making everything sound like a conspiracy, making everything sound, Candace Owens said that the administration's an administration of Satan. Look, I mean, some of these things just feel a lot to me like it's clickbait. It's reasons for you to get in there and listen and buy into this idea that there is something, happening, something big and bad is afoot. So I don't like it. The bottom line on this is when you get to the end and you see a president is in negotiations. We have a war going. We have guys who were almost captured. I mean, praise the Lord on Easter that we have an old wounded colonel, right? First thing that I was thinking is, what's the old wounded colonel doing flying the plane? This doesn't typically happen once you become a colonel. You're passing that off. This guy's dedicated, hardcore, and he had the courage and the strength to climb 7,000 feet to get up out of the way. Imagine, I had the opportunity to go through some training when I was in the military that we call survival, escape, and evasion, and resistance, and SEER training. And I went through the baby course, so nothing like some of these guys go through now. That was tied into another school that I was a part of. But what they're doing is they're trying to run you down and hunt you, and they're trying to make you feel like you get no rest, you have no one you can trust, you have a very difficult environment, and the stakes are very high. And that's exactly what was happening with our servicemen on Saturday and Sunday. Meanwhile, we've got politicians out here bashing on the president, talking about the 25th Amendment, talking about what a lunatic he is. And I just don't like it. I think that this should be a severe, I guess, a moment where the public comes together to raise up and say, hey, stop that. Stop. It's not the time for that. You can do that after the war's been won, and you want to come back and second guess and talk about all the things that went wrong. Do it then, but don't do it now. So I want to hear what you guys are thinking. So I think I may have access. What's the last comment you have? Uh, no, that's not the last one I have. So something's happening on my system. I'm just going to refresh once again. I can't refresh over and over. Drive you guys crazy. Um, I tried, but I will. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work like this for now. And okay, so okay, Cynthia, what is the 25th Amendment? Um, I am her news person. That's awful. You know, it's really bad when your husband's your news person. The 25th Amendment says that when a president is mentally incapacitated, he can be removed from. Okay, I like that. Now this is forever memorialized, honey. What is the 25th Amendment? You know, you're my news history person. Um, but it says that a president can be removed from office because he's mentally incapacitated. Um, there are certain factors, and you have to have then his cabinet come to an agreement on this. By the way, they're also saying that Pete Hegseth should be impeached as the. In fact, I think I saw. Was it who was it that actually brought this up? I think it was Yasemin Ansari who said she was going to impeach um, Hegseth or bring up articles of impeachment. So look, it's just the wrong time. It's the wrong time for that. You don't have to agree. Wayne, I see you. Okay, now that I've got everybody here, let me at least say hello. And give me your questions. What's out there? What do you guys think? Who's for the president here? Who's for, hey, we should pull out, we should end this thing as fast as we can? I want to hear all of that. And do me a favor, while we're here, just like and share. And if you do the oh boy, the share. If you hit the share button, it'll take this live stream out to your stream. So one of the things that used to happen on the old Crawfordology is we started bringing up topics that I'll say the Facebook police didn't like, right? Whoever it was that was responsible for this, they didn't like it. So what did they start to do? They started, in fact, I would get an email that would say, hey, Jim, we're not going to turn you off, but you've been suppressed. So there were times that when we would go live like this to live stream, and it's going to take us a while to get back. We're at 26 eyeballs at the moment, where we would have hundreds, even thousands of people watching, and then what happened? Well, we got the politics of the day turned really nasty, and we started to be suppressed because during COVID, we said a couple things that we just asked questions. By the way, for the most part, we were quoting things or citing things that were found in the Wall Street Journal, and they were challenging that. And there was one point where during the 2020 election, and we saw, by the way, I feel a little vindicated here in Georgia because Georgia has acknowledged that what was it, 300,000, 350,000 ballots that they illegally approved, which gave Biden the win by 11,000. So one of the things we mentioned was, hey, there's these suitcase ballots, right? Remember the video of the girl pulling out the ballots from under the table after the checkers were gone? And it seemed like she was opening those up. Well, they gave a reason that happened. Facebook bought it lock, stock, and barrel, and we immediately became the scourge of the earth forever, saying that there was some question about the election. So I'm telling you this because things like this can drive momentum, and we saw it firsthand on how we were really flying high with the podcast. And then what they told me is they said, we're only going to allow you to reach 200 people. So 200 people. So at the time we had roughly 350,000 followers, and we went to 200 eyeballs that we were allowed to have at a time. So I was getting, and what was very frustrating is we would see the text messages coming through, people saying, what happened to Jim? What happened to Jim? You know, is Jim out there anymore? And we could see it, but we couldn't communicate. We had no way to take that back and say, yeah, we're here. We still had posts, we still had the website. So that's what caused us to build American One. And I want to show you some things on American One before we go tonight that are really important to me. It gave us a gateway that we could go and we could stream outside of any of the conventional systems, right? So we didn't have to live under the evil tyrants at Facebook or YouTube or any of the others, right? And what was that one that was kind of growing and they shut the whole platform down? Remember that one? There was a platform that was really taken off. Parlor, yeah. So I don't know if you guys remember the Parlor platform, and we were active on Parlor too, and suddenly like Parlor just disappeared. I mean, that was they were on Amazon Web Service, and Amazon said you can't do that anymore. You can't talk. You guys are spreading hate. So it would be nice if everything was peace and love. I hope that if they're going to do this, they will go look at those congressmen and women who had all these negative, hateful things to say about the president, and they'll decide maybe we should do something about that. Okay, anyway, American One. So if you go to the American One site, there are lots of news articles there. There's things that you can click on. Again, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not making money. This isn't how I make my money, right? I'm for those of you who have been following for a long time, you know I'm a business guy. I've been in the defense world. I've got an AI company. I've got a few things that we do. But there you go on the Armory site. So look, we are Christians, and we do. I have a respect. I have Muslim friends. I have Jewish friends. I have Muslim employees. I have Jewish employees. So one thing I don't care for is I don't believe that any one group of people can be identified or you know called out and say, hey, that whole group is evil, right? What we can say is there are times that we are at odds with a group of people, and we call that war or conflict, and then in that case, I don't think that those are homogenous groups of people. But look, we just passed Easter. Christ is King. God bless America. It's hard to like argue with those things. I'm not. We're not trying to be, kill them all, let God sort them out kind of thing. You can get those T-shirts. I probably have a few of those T-shirts too, and there are all sorts of knickknacks and novelties that will be showing up here. We're going to do a coffee mug. We're going to do some different things that you'll see, some hats. But we're definitely celebrating 250 years of America this year, and we want you to take part in that. And if you don't get it from us, get something out there. Tell your friends about American One. Tell your friends about the long game. We want to see more than 26 people at a time. And it's really fun to be back. I'll tell you, I enjoy this a lot. It's a little bit therapeutic, I think, for me to get these things out of my head and at least speak my part. And I'm perfectly fine, by the way, perfectly fine. If you disagree with me, if you think that I'm wrong in something, I really want to hear that. I really want to hear where those folks are and where that thinking comes from. So if you've got something, lay it on me. Lay it on me. Let me hear what you're thinking. Okay, so I see they are doing a great job putting the ad in the chat. So we've got the chat. All right, Wayne, Facebook did the same to Pastor Tom Lampley. Yeah, I can remember when you couldn't go to church, by the way, in California, they put you in jail, right? They would come and even well after COVID, they were still trying to run down these folks and do something about that. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll through here. And we're looking, Wayne, we're looking for the old music right now. I know we have it. So we have kind of this new. Did everybody see the new opening this morning or this evening? Play that thing again. I just want you to see. I want to play the one that kind of plays on the front. So as we're getting started, hey Charlotte, all right, Woodstock, Virginia. Judy, you're here. Not this one, not the running one, but the one. There's one that kind of hangs out there, and if you'll look for this, I feel like I got Fat Albert that I'm racing there. Every time I see this, I feel like it's Beavis and Butthead meets Fat Albert. This one, right? So this one we'll be playing as we get ready to go on. And then I know it's probably not exactly, I don't have that much hair. And this guy actually looks younger than me, I think, even though he's got more white hair. I don't know. But hey, listen, I enjoy I enjoy being here. It's really great seeing you guys. Um, Lynn Halls, thanks for joining. That's that's some new folks popping in. Judy, it's always nice to see you. Wayne, always great to see you too. Cynthia, always great to see you. Glad to know that I am your newscaster. So, we can come up here and play on the weekend if you want. I'll sit behind the desk and act like I'm like reading the news or something, whatever you're thinking. Um, so, so it is wonderful. You guys have a great night. Let's keep praying that this Iran ceasefire lasts and that we actually do see an end to this and better days ahead. And back to some of that, and maybe we'll get $1.50 gas. That would be awesome, right? $1.50 gas. So prayers for the safety of you and your loved ones. God bless you all. We'll see you next time.